On today's episode of Locked On Canucks, is it time to press the panic button following another slow start for the Vancouver Canucks and some blown leads? It is Locked On Canucks, and it starts right now.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. Of course, I'm your host, Justin Pooney. You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Process Sports with an underscore at the end. That is Process Sports with an underscore at the end. You can also follow us on Twitter, our show on Twitter, at Locked On Canucks. That is at Locked On Canucks. Please also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just type in Locked On Canucks on YouTube, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. Also, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast services. So, the Canucks have gotten off to a slow start this season. Again, of course, they lost Game 1 in Edmonton after blowing a 3-0 lead, losing 5-0 to the Oilers, which I kind of gave them a pass for because you have McDavid and Draisaitl on that squad. And then I expected the Canucks to come out and take care of business in Philadelphia. And that's not what happened. The Canucks, of course, got off to a good start with a 2-0 lead after the first period. But then Travis Konecny scored with just over 6 minutes left to play in the third period. And all of a sudden, I realized the Canucks were down 3-2, and they did not come back. Tony DeAngelo and Scott Laughton also got found on the board. Scott Laughton's goal was a shorthanded goal, the second given up by Vancouver, and the Canucks lost. And things are not looking good. Of course, JT Miller, the big man on campus, or whatever you want to say, after you signed that big contract extension, everybody expected big things. He's been on the ice for all 8 goals the Canucks have given up this season. And after the game, JT Miller was not very happy. He added, "I'm just disappointed. I'm not trying to make this about me, but I'm not going to sit here and talk about how bad we played when I can't even lead the example the right way. I feel like I'm a little irrelevant and being on the ice for every goal. I don't know what to say." That's after he said he's been on the ice for all 8 effing goals again. So at least he is acknowledging he's been on the ice for every goal. Now, the big question, the big overlying question is it time to press the panic button? No. Everybody, Aaron Rodgers once said the words, spelled the words of a letter that was RELAX. Relax. It is 2 games. There is still 80 games left, a potential 160 points for the Canucks to claim. Now, starting off 0-2 is not good. It's not ideal. Think about it. The Canucks had a 3-0 lead and a 2-0 lead, and they did not even register 1 point. That is not good. The Canucks have struggled like that, and I think the defense core, as I mentioned, does not look good right now. They had their, some nice moments, but there's another injury now. Tucker Poolman did not play the remainder of the game, and with all of Tucker Poolman's issues, we don't know, is he going to play? So let's focus on a couple things that do not look good. The defense core has another injury, and this is the mess the Canucks left themselves with, and this is the thing that they have to deal with now because they did not address it in the offseason. Now, was I a huge proponent? Do I still believe this team is a playoff team? Yes. The offense is going to have to carry them, and special teams. You can't be giving up 2 shorthanded goals and going 1 for 8 on the power play and 0 for 5 on the power play. And it's a special teams game, and I expect the Canucks special teams to be a lot better. That power play right there needs to be clicking. Now, in the first game, they looked good. They were snapping the puck around. It looked impressive at points. Elias Pettersson looked dominant. I'm going to talk about Andrei Kuzmenko in a bit later on in the show. But there are things that the Canucks need to work on. It's early. It's not time to press the panic button just yet, but I want to focus on the defense. When you have guys like Luke Schenn, Kyle Burrows, Riley Stillman, those guys right there playing a lot of minutes. And I love Luke Schenn. I think Kyle Burrows has played well. I thought Tucker Poolman played well in Edmonton. But you're asking a lot out of Quinn Hughes and Oliver Ekman-Larsson to carry the load. And quite frankly, Quinn Hughes, as great as he is, he's not going to be a defensive. He's not going to be a shutdown guy, right? OEL, for as an advanced age and where he's at in his career, you can't expect that from him. And I never thought I would say this, but the Canucks desperately need Tyler Myers, Travis Dermott, and hopefully Tucker Poolman back in this lineup to kind of balance it out and give it more depth. I like Riley Stillman, but you saw what McDavid did against him. Walked in. Now McDavid does that to a lot of people, but you just need a solid defense core, and I'm worried right now about that. Do I think Thatcher Demko will, show more consistency? Yes. Do I think this offense will pick up? And do I think once Ilya Mikheyev gets back, you will see a better showing from the forward group? Yeah, because quite frankly, Niels Höglander, the first two games, has not looked good at all. He had a good preseason, got to play with Elias Pettersson in the first couple of games, and it does not look good. Does not look good. And I'm worried about that. So there are things to be worrisome about. There are the defense, the power play. Those are my two big issues right now, because the power play I expect to be in the top 10 of the league to help carry this team and this offense to carry this team to the playoffs. And defense, it has to be better. Like I said, I'm not too upset about losing to Edmonton because Edmonton can score with the best of them. They can put up goals like nobody's business. You saw that what they did even yesterday against the Calgary Flames. They were down big and they ended up losing 4-2, but they're down 4-1 and they made it almost close because they could score with the best of them. So I think the Oilers, that game I'll give you a pass on. Because that team is going to win, is a cup contender team. The Flyers in Philadelphia, you weathered the storm in the first period. You scored 2 goals on 4 shots. You outshoot them the rest of the way, and you can't close the deal. That right there is bad. That right there is a stinker that you need to flush and move forward. Because like I said before the season started, this team, if this team gets off to like a 1-4 road trip, that's not good. This team needs to somehow muster at least 2 wins in the rest of the way, whether that's in Washington, in Minnesota, or wherever. I don't know where they're going to get that win from, but this team has to pull out at least 2 wins before they come home next Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres. So when I look at this Canucks roster, right, like that, the Flyers game was a gimme. Now you're going up against a Washington team, a Columbus team, and a Minnesota team that is it's not a clear-cut win. The Flyers was a clear-cut win, and I thought if you could steal a point at Edmonton and maybe steal another win, that wouldn't be bad. You can get 5 points out of a potential 10. That would be a successful road trip, in my opinion. Now, if you just get 4, that would be something to salvage. So I don't know what the Canucks are going to do going forward. The only thing you can do is go up. This is the worst start possible you could have, blowing big leads, getting off to an 0-2 start. This is the worst start you could possibly have, barring any injury, though. So thankfully, Tucker Poolman, a massive injury to a massive player on the squad. But the Canucks need to get their power play in order. That defense needs to get healthy, and they need to figure something out. Now, does that mean Jack Rathbone comes in? I think that might not be a bad idea. The guy's got talent. The guy has some high upside. Put Jack Rathbone in. See if he can sink or swim. I think that should be the move for the Canucks. Put Jack Rathbone in. Yes, he's young and unseasoned, but put him in there. See what he can do, and potentially it could work out. If it doesn't work out, you can send him back down to the minors, right? So I want to see that for the back end. So it's not all doom and gloom. There has been some positives from the Canucks this early on in the season, one in particular, and I'm going to touch on that after the break. But first, I want to talk to you guys about the fine folks at BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for your football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport and wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. BetOnline.net or use betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, now we are back. Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. Like I said, it is not all... Excuse me about that. Sorry about the YouTube users. I am clicking everywhere massively on my screen. That is my fault. We are back, and it hasn't been all doom and gloom for the Vancouver Canucks. The biggest shining star in the first couple games has been Andrei Kuzmenko, in my personal opinion. After 8 years of playing in the KHL, it looks like he fit in kind of nicely. He scored his first goal like I predicted in Edmonton. And I think what makes this guy, I saw confidence. I saw a guy out there that was not afraid to just, do what he has to do. He has make a nice moves with the puck, drive into the net. And he said all the right things. He said he was happy to score, but he wants to win, right? And I think that's another thing, the attitude. When I look at a player, when I look at people, right? Individual accolades are amazing, but when I look at people, especially in a team setting, can they conform themselves and their personal goals to a team goal? Now, I believe Andrei Kuzmenko will be a very, very good player for the Vancouver Canucks. I've seen enough throughout the preseason and the first couple games that I feel this guy can be a very good player. Now, he's going to have his lumps. He's going to have his moments in the season where he has ups and his downs like everybody else does. But, Bruce Boudreau said he's picking up the game quite quickly. He's got that nose for the net. You saw that with his goal. You saw that, on the power play where he was in front of the net trying to tip shots in and stuff like that. And Andrei Kuzmenko, he goes to the net. And him and Elias Pettersson are building some nice chemistry. We'll see how the lines shuffle. We had the Pearson, the Miller, and the Besser, and the Garland, Podkolzin, and Horvat, and the Pettersson, the Höglander, and the Kuzmenko. I think Mikheyev will slide in eventually whenever he gets into the game. But I like that dynamic between Kuzmenko and Pettersson. I think that is something that can really work, and that's something that can be built upon to give this team some much-needed balance, especially in that top six lineup. And I think when you look at it, you look at that first game in Edmonton, you look at that game last night, they're struggling. JT Miller struggling. Elias Pettersson in the game against Edmonton showed flashes of dominance, which I think he needs to show on a more consistent basis. And quite frankly, we need to see more of that. When he scored that first goal, he took the puck to the net. That is what I was talking about all summer long. I need to see Elias Pettersson take the puck, go to the net, make strong moves, and do what he does best like that. And if he can't do that on a consistent basis, well, then I was completely wrong about everything I said about him. The skill is there, the drive is there. If he can do that, that is something to work. And now when he has a guy on his flank like Andrei Kuzmenko, guy that can get into the dirty areas, can win puck battles in the corner, can go to the front of the net, that's going to be successful. That's the type of guy I think Elias Pettersson needs to do, because if Kuzmenko can draw people towards him, that opens up more space for Pettersson, and I think that will be successful. Plus, even if you add a guy like Mikheyev on that line with that speed, that's just going to give more space for Elias Pettersson, I think. And I honestly think that line could really work if that happens whenever either Mikheyev gets in the line. Hopefully by the end of this road trip, I'm hoping Monday in Washington he's in the lineup because the Canucks desperately need something. Bo Horvat struggled in the first game. He had a lot of chances, was fanning on it. He played better in Philly. The goal with Connor Garland scored, he was driving to the net. That's what he does best, driving to the net and playing that hard line game. The contract situation is now getting up in the media, and everybody's kind of, finding reasons to not sully him, but put him down a bit and try to diminish his value in the media. Look, I said the other day, if Horvat, his agent Pat Morris said he's a first-line center. Now, do I think Bo Horvat is a first-line center on a cup-contending team? No, but he can be a damn good number 2 center. On the Canucks right now, he's a number 3 center. We'll see how this experiment works. Do I eventually think they'll probably put Miller and Pettersson back together? I do. But we'll see how that transpires. But Bo Horvat, it's the price for a center, $7 million. Now, is that worth the Canucks? No, but I hate harping on contract situations because I feel like we've been doing it the last, I don't know how long, with Brock Besser, JT Miller, now Bo Horvat. Before that was Pettersson and Hughes. Contract situations always transfer, but he is a main cog of this core. You got to sign him. You're not going to, if you take out Bo Horvat from this lineup, the center ice position on this team goes down a lot. A lot. And I know people think, you still better Miller and Pettersson. That's fine, but Bo Horvat does a lot of good things. He had a bad game in Edmonton, played a little bit better in Philly. I felt that Horvat should have at least scored. I think it was he had a shot, a wide open shot in the slot, I think, against Edmonton, kind of just skied it. And I think once he gets the puck and once the puck goes in the net for him, you'll start seeing more confidence. But let's face it, you're gonna have to keep him. He's your captain. He's a top. He's not a top flank center, but he's a guy that's one of the top two-way centers in the league, in my personal opinion. So you got to keep him. And I want to see how I think him and Connor Garland and Podkolzin can build something right there. They can be a good shutdown line and chip in offensively as well. So I want to see how that transpires, how all that goes out. So when I think about a Canucks fans and everything, just give it some time. We'll reconvene in a week's time, and we'll see where this team is at. And if they're in a spot where they have like 1 or 2 wins, then it's time to panic, right? But if they are, hovering around 500, that's fine. As long as if they can get out of October and kind of get healthy by November around 500, then I think that will be a better step. They were horrible in the first half of last year. If they can get off to a 500 start in the first month and then kind of get healthy and catch their stride, then things will be okay. Things will be okay. We just got to take it easy and relax and breathe. And I think everything will find its course. Just got to get through this. It's not easy starting off on a 5-game road trip your season like that. So just take it easy. Everything will be okay. And I think the Canucks will be fine. But coming up after this last break, we're going to touch on some happier news, some more positive news. As a former Canuck gets to sign a 1-day contract extension and retire as a Vancouver Canucks. So we will get to that right after this break. But first, I want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen every day. Now make your second listen game to game, NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result, Locked On Game to Game covers the game across the NHL with local analysts that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game, Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app and YouTube, wherever you get your podcast services. All right, guys, we are back. Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. So it's been a lot of bad on the ice, but there's some good that took place off the ice. The Canucks are pleased to announce that they will sign a 1-day contract with Kevin Bieksa as he officially marks his retirement as a Vancouver Canuck. It will be celebrated on November the 3rd when the Canucks play host to the Anaheim Ducks, the only other team that, of course, Bieksa played for. Bieksa did say he's honored and grateful to officially end his career as a Vancouver Canuck. Of course, he was drafted in the 5th round back in 2001 and spent parts of 12 years in the Canucks organization. He's a top 10 in all the following categories: games, goals amongst defensemen, assists, points. And he was a fan favorite. Look, the guy was amazing. He also appeared in 71 playoff games, highlighted by the Stanley Cup final run in 2011. So I was excited. As a guy who grew up in that era that loved those teams, I was extremely happy that Kevin Bieksa is getting his just due. I said in summer, he deserves to retire as a Vancouver Canuck. He should retire as a Vancouver Canuck. So kudos on the Vancouver Canucks for allowing him to do so. I wish I was going to be there in the building November 3rd to see that. I love that the Canucks are honoring their past. I think Kevin Bieksa was a fan favorite in Vancouver. I think he's a great guy. I think, he's great on TV, and he's a guy that will be a Canucks legend. So that is amazing. Now, tomorrow, We will preview the Canucks at Capitals, which we will see if the Canucks can finally get off the schneid and get a W in the nation's capital of the United States of America. Of course, we'll have a full game preview. We'll also have my best bets for the game. So if you want to win some money, make sure you got your notepad and pen and paper and take care and listen to all of that. But I also want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day. Your second listen, Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steele Rodin and Philip Livingstone bring you the fantasy edge and keep you ahead of the competition with daily updates of news, analysis, and advice every Monday through Friday. Available on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcast services. Guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.